Welcome to This Explainer brought to you by Forge College. Today, we're diving into designing nested mappings and struct management patterns. If our last lesson on mainnet and devnet environments was all about picking the perfect plot of land for your decentralized app, today is literally about pouring the concrete. We're going to draft the architectural blueprints for your smart contract state and make sure you don't accidentally trap yourself inside. Our engineering schematic for today breaks down into 5 phases. We'll cover blueprinting state, structs and nested mappings, memory versus storage rules, building CRUD operations, and we'll finish up with safety inspections and pitfalls.
All right, Section 1, Blueprinting Smart Contract State. So you might be wondering, how exactly do we organize an infinite but totally forgetful database? Think of Solidity mappings as this massive amnesiac filing cabinet. It doesn't keep an index of its folders, and it happily just hands you a blank piece of paper if it can't find what you're actually looking for. How on earth do we design a reliable system around a quirk like that?
Well, the answer is nested mappings. It's basically a way of chaining mapping types together. Your primary key maps to a secondary mapping, representing these complex, multi-dimensional relationships. So a specific user owning a specific collection, which then holds specific items. It maps it all out perfectly without wasting your precious gas.
Moving right along to Section 2, Structs and Nested Mappings.
Let's break down the exact hierarchy we're drafting here. We start at the top level with an address. That's the owner of the assets. That address maps to a second-level uint256 collection ID. And then that collection ID maps down to another uint256 item ID. Finally, that yields our stored value, which is the item struct itself. It's a really elegant, gas-efficient chain of keys that pinpoints your data. And speaking of that item struct, let's open it up. It neatly packs our primitive data fields together. We've got an ID, a name, and a value. But I really want to draw your attention to that absolutely crucial Boolean flag at the very bottom, the exists flag.
Why do we need that Boolean? Well, remember our forgetful filing cabinet? It automatically returns a default 0 state for a key that doesn't exist. If you query an item that was literally never created, Solidity just shrugs and gives you an ID of 0 and an empty string. So we absolutely must include a Sentinel exists flag, or some auxiliary marker mapping, just to detect if an entry was purposefully created or if it's just a ghost in the machine.
Okay, Section 3, Memory versus Storage Rules. Time to master the physics of the blockchain. The rule of thumb for our blueprint is super simple. Storage is permanent ink. It persists on-chain forever. Memory, on the other hand, is just a temporary sticky note. It gets totally thrown away the second the function finishes executing. Because of this, when you need to mutate a stored struct, you must obtain a persistent reference. You do this by explicitly using the storage keyword when defining your variable. If you forget this, you're just writing on that temporary sticky note. You'll either trigger a compiler error, or, honestly worse, you'll silently lose your updates forever. That brings us to Section 4, Building CRUD Operations. Let's systematically walk through the life cycle of our data machinery. First, we create the collection marker and add an item. Second, we read that transient data. Third, we push updates on-chain. And fourth, we securely sweep the storage slot clean when we delete it. Starting with creation and addition, you can't just blindly insert data. You need strict pre-checks. We use require statements to assert preconditions. We verify the collection actually exists. We ensure the item hasn't already been created by checking that handy exists flag. And we use call data for external strings to cut down on expensive memory copies.
Next up is reading. To read the item, we fetch the storage reference, but we simply return the fields as a lightweight tuple. Notice that we use memory or call data for transient copies here. This keeps the read operation incredibly cheap, fast, and completely safe from accidental overwrites. And when it's finally time to destroy an item, the process is remarkably clean. Using the delete keyword entirely clears that nested mapping storage slot. It resets every single one of the structs fields, including our exists flag, strictly back to their default 0 values. It's a perfect system reset. Finally, Section 5, Safety Inspections and Pitfalls. Let's make sure we avoid the traps.
There are 3 critical mistakes that we constantly see tripping developers up, causing unexpected 0 values or nasty compiler errors. They are accidental memory copying, expecting mapping enumeration, and unprotected direct access. Let's break these down so you never make them.
Mistake number 1 is a classic. If you accidentally declare your mapped struct with memory instead of storage, You are basically writing onto a sticky note. The compiler might actually let it pass, but the second the transaction completes, your changes just vanish into thin air.
Mistake number 2 takes us back to that forgetful filing cabinet. Mappings do not track their keys. If you absolutely need to enumerate or loop through your items, you can't do it with just a mapping. You have to maintain a parallel array. But beware, doing that is going to drastically increase your gas costs and your architectural complexity. And mistake number 3, unprotected direct access. Mappings themselves don't inherently enforce any rules. Without access control constraints like enforcing MSG.sender checks or using robust require statements, literally anyone could reach into your perfectly drafted blueprint and maliciously overwrite your user's data. Always, always guard your write operations. So, what does this all mean for gas usage and optimal storage packing? Well, keep these blueprints handy. Our next lesson in this module is state mutability and storage patterns, where we'll optimize these exact structures by analyzing the fascinating gas trade-offs and struct packing mechanics.
Before we wrap up, ask yourself a question. If your smart contract forgets its own data, how much is it going to cost your users to remind it? State management isn't just about code, right? It's about economics. To dive deeper into these decentralized engineering schematics and to explore a ton of other Web3 topics, make sure you visit forge.college. Thanks so much for joining me on this Explainer by Forge College, and I'll catch you in the next one.